Are you kidding me? The YouTube chat is already bumping. We got people in there from Colorado. We got Gritty. We got others. Everybody is hanging out. Andy Hughes from his house, me from my basement as I get ready for a monster week. Remember, Monday we will be broadcasting live from our golf tournament over at GCI Golf Club of Indiana. Horseshoe Indianapolis is the sponsor, and we thank everybody, including our friend El Presidente, who is playing, and Otter Creek, who is playing. I think you're going to have a good time with my boy Kevin Custer and my baseball coach, Dave Pishka. I think you're going to have an absolute freaking blast. All right, let's get right into it. I don't know if you saw this last night. Maybe you did. But did you see Clay and Mark Cuban going at it? Full disclosure, I like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban came on my radio show in Indy not once but twice. In fact, he delayed going on SportsCenter for our show, and he's like, yeah, I don't care. This is too much fun. So I like Cuban, but here's the deal. Clay Travis wrote an incredibly, and I mean incredibly researched, smart, adroit article on how the Bud Light catastrophe didn't start with Bud Light. It started with viewership in the NBA. And our fearless leader, Clay Travis, then said, hey, look, you love hopping in my mentions, all right? Why did the NFL set an all-time viewership record last year, as did NCAA men's and women's basketball, but the NBA peaked 25 years ago? Look forward to hearing your analysis. Well, Mark Cuban took the bait, and Mark Cuban went into a variety of things. Now, Mark Cuban is smart. Clay is smart. Here is the response. Because the NFL is more popular, our ratings are up as well. Let me ask you two questions. Why was the NBA more watched than any other TV show on TV, particularly in the young demos, and most popular on social media? And, of course, the obligatory shot, which is what happens to your station and your show, Clay and Buck, when AM radio is taken out of all cars and trucks. See, I get it. You got to give the shot. Now, of course, this wasn't done. Of course, we had more. False NFL, NBA ratings are at a 30-year peak, 30-year lows. Data doesn't lie. Peaked 25 years ago. NFL. College football, men's and women's basketball continue to set records high. Audio evolves. We get 15 million plus podcast downloads a month. There is the response. These are two smart people going at it, okay? Like, if Mark Cuban came at me, I'd be like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. Didn't you used to own Motley's or something, man? And that's what I'd do. But then it gets going even more. But wait, there's more. Social media impressions are mostly blank and likely, in my opinion, detract from the popularity of actual NBA games. I think they're a substitute rather than a supplement. Otherwise, NBA ratings wouldn't be collapsing and you'd be crushing the NFL, which is far less popular on social media, instead of getting crushed. But while you're here, let me ask you a question, and this is where you just have no answer if you're an NBA guy. But let me ask you a question. You ready? All right. Should Chinese people have basic rights? I think they should. Do you? Why will the NBA speak out so aggressively on, say, North Carolina bathroom bills, say nothing about China, all while pocketing their billions? Shouldn't basic human rights be a non-negotiable issue for a global brand like the NBA? Now, Clay is coming on at 10:30 to discuss this. This is why, right there, that question is why you cannot take LeBron James or Steve Kerr or Mark Cuban or any Pop or any of these guys serious that are, quote, social justice warriors against our country. All right? But it didn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen. We continue on. So you disagree, so you are saying the NBA, so you disagree with the Chinese Communist Party putting people in concentration camps and denying their people basic human rights. We agree. Why not have NBA issue that statement? Because Cuban had said they deserve human rights. I'd be hugely supportive. So would most Americans of all political persuasions. That's right. Most people don't understand the issue with China. I certainly didn't. But the basic thing is this. China pays a lot of money for the NBA. I mean, they are paying and paying and paying and paying and paying. And the money goes to the NBA, and the NBA won't say a word about China. Daryl Morey did. All right? So, I imagine being a billionaire and still being afraid to say what you actually think because I'm worried about communist dictators might think of me. What's the point of having FU money if you're too much of a biatch to even say squat to China? What would you say to someone in your family that called you I tell you what I tell my kids, whatever the argument is, you kick their backside. That's what people who just got their backsides kicked in, they start calling you names. Clay's response, and this pretty much ends it, I tell my kids to stop being a little batch, stand up to Chinese human rights abuses instead of worrying about evil dictators might do to their money. But I want my kids to stand on principle. You clearly put money over everything while pretending otherwise. Good luck, bud. Yeah, we got a Donnybrook. Look, I don't mind a spat on Twitter. A lot of people say you shouldn't. Look, it is what it is. You know, what basic Twitter is two newspapers going at each other in real time. It used to be the Chicago Tribune against the Chicago Sun-Times, and they would battle, right, for scoops and all that. Well, what you got here is bigger than both of those. You've got two big entities going at it in a discussion/argument in real time. This isn't vague. This isn't out here. This isn't, passive aggressive. This is in real time. And I got to tell you, for me personally, I dig it. And again, Clay will be on at 10:30. But there is no denying that if, in fact, you are going to be a political entity, which is what the NBA wants to be, and one of the most ridiculous things in this is when Clay did his article. He talked about Jacob Blake, a serial woman abuser, a violent felon against women, who a woman called to get police to help her, and the idiots at the WNBA actually wore shirts supporting Jacob Blake. You cannot make this stupidity up. What Clay wrote initially is a history lesson, and I encourage all of you to read it. I do. I encourage you all to read it because not only does it talk about failed ratings of the NBA, not only does it talk about how the NBA may or may not, it may have been the first Anheuser-Busch, but it really discusses the history looking back at the NBA's political activism. It talks about how ridiculous it is, how false it is, how full of crap it is, and I encourage you to disagree with it. Hey, why not? Maybe you think the WNBA should talk about Jacob Blake. Maybe you think the WNBA women should support Jacob Blake, a serial felon woman abuser. I personally think it's absurd. I think it's idiotic, but I got to tell you, everybody is entitled to their own opinions. But this right here is a history lesson. Or you can go to the Indy Star and read about Greg Doyle's cats and his dogs and how a 90-year-old guy, whatever. He's great with the 90-year-old guy stuff. You can read the USA Today and read Dan Wetzel complaining about something, or you can read real journalism. And that's exactly what that is right there. That article gives you a perspective and a history lesson that you won't find anywhere in the mainstream media, and you can say I'm kissing the backside of my boss, but I will say this. Clay's written a lot of things that I have not commented on. Clay's written a lot of articles that I've read and go, yeah, that's really good. But this one, ladies and gentlemen, this one right here smacked me right between the nose, particularly as we continue to discuss the stupidity, the utter stupidity of WNBA people, the women in the league, the women speaking. It's glorious. Speaking of this, I don't know, did you see this? And I got to ask the YouTube chat. So Victor Wembanyama is the number one pick in the draft. So he's the guy, right? I saw something that said his security group slapped Britney Spears. I swear to you, Bill Martin, Big Jim, No Fun League, Van Pasterman, Gritty, I swear to you, I thought this was some type of onion thing. I thought this was some type of Camilla Harris parody, AOC parody. I did. I swear to you, I did. And then I started reading it. I'm like, wait a second. This actually happened? This happened? Like, apparently, Wembanyama was walking from, in the lobby of a casino. He's at the Summer League in Vegas with his security team. He was walking straight. The security team told him, look, don't stop. It'll cause a commotion. People are yelling. All of a sudden, hey, sir, turn around. And apparently, depending on who you ask, Britney Spears tapped him on the shoulder and got backhanded by the Spurs head of security. Or, if you listen, Britney Spears grabbed him by the shoulder and got backhanded by security. I don't know which one. But either way, the number one pick, this 19-year-old security team, backslapped Britney Spears. And the reason I thought this was a parody was because I don't know how closely you follow this. I don't, but I know it. Britney Spears been like in the news for like taking off her clothes on Instagram and all this stuff. Like there's been some Britney Spears stuff in the social media circles, and then all of a sudden, boom! And I'm like, whoa. Did this really happen? It did. And now you see Britney Spears has filed the police report for battery, and there is an investigation. She actually said, hey, look, how about you apologize? I mean, who knows what happened? You and I both know there's always a backstory, but I swear to you, when I saw that, I went, what? Hit me, baby, one more time. That's pretty good, Aaron. I did. I'm sure you did as well. Joy Reid said she went to Harvard only because of affirmative action, and I say, well, who didn't know that? I mean, the racist, ridiculous troll on MSNBC is complaining about a number of things. Yeah, it's Britney, bitch. I love Ryan. Ryan, you just keep them coming, baby. But now Joy Reid is trying to stay relevant because now Joy Reid is afraid to go outside. Let's hear from arguably the worst human being on television, not named Dakich. I'll give it.
I did not go out on July 4th and would not. The idea of going to a mass gathering, a parade, or a big fireworks thing outside seems insane to me, to be blunt, in America, because America is awash with guns, and now people don't just have them. They seem to want to shoot people with them and use them for whatever,
Yeah, all right. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm an eyes person. I can tell in her eyes she's an insecure woman that's really gets offended by a lot of stuff, and she's just an idiot. So, you know what? Good for Joy Reid, good for Harvard, and I think that we should all just be scared to move. Particularly, because everybody wants to shoot everybody, particularly in the circles that a woman making millions runs in, and, we got guns everywhere. I got to tell you, and this is true, I've never seen a gun. I've never seen a gun like at a parade or anywhere like that. Now, I've had a gun pulled on me 3 times by police officers, and all 3 times, 2 of the 3, quite frankly, I deserved it. Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I did. I deserved it. What can I tell you? But the truth of the matter is, people want to shoot, don't go where people are shooting, although that's getting a little bit harder. But look, Mark Jones, Joy Reid, they can say whatever they want, and I am just going to laugh at it. I told you this was coming. I said this was coming. I'm not lying that this is coming. It is coming. The Saudi Arabians are going to try, maybe do, but try to take over sports. We told you this a little bit ago, but the Saudis are putting together one of these investment funds. They are launching a sports investment group to target additional sports such as soccer, tennis, and possibly American football. The multi-billion-dollar investment company will expand in sports interests following its power grab in golf. Now, let me tell you about football. Before everybody says, they're going to be... No. Those owners in football, if you think about it, name me one of the owners in football that is owned by a company, that is owned by, like, the Chicago Tribune, a board. No. It's very personal in football. You've got the Irsay family. You've got Kraft. You've got all these different families, Kroenkes. I can continue. Jones, you got all these families, okay? It's like the mafia. They sit at a table and they look and they nudge, and some guy goes running and gets him a cognac or whatever the hell. I guarantee you this, in my lifetime, I'll bet you money on it. There's no way in hell, zero chance, the NFL allows the Saudi Arabians, to this investment group, to come into the NFL. I will bet anybody money in my lifetime so you can pay my kids. I'm telling you right now, there is zero chance that the Saudi Arabians, zero, are going to be allowed to buy an NFL team. No chance. It is, you're sitting there telling me that all these families that own these teams are going to go, we want your group in. There is no chance. And let me tell you something else. Every single league, every single team, every single person is watching what's happening to Anheuser-Busch. And they are telling their crew, they are telling their publicity people, they are telling their sports information directors, they are telling their publicity teams, their marketing teams, you run everything by us. Like I would, if I were the owner of a mega company, I would have a group of people that I trust. I would have a group of very smart people. In this case, in this climate, I would have a group of conservative people saying, no, don't run that crap. Conservatives are going to jump you. It wasn't so long ago that you had to have a group of LGBTQ women and everything else. No. You better figure it out if you're a company, and you better understand what conservatives are about right now, because this conservative boycott of not only Anheuser-Busch, but I don't know if you saw what's happened to Ben & Jerry's ice cream, $2 billion lost from an idiotic tweet. Now, Ben & Jerry's got sold out because that's what Ben & Jerry and liberal idiots do. They sell out to a British company, but I digress. Wokeness has destroyed the NBA. It has, and you got to understand, has it destroyed the salaries? No, of course not, but it's destroyed viewership. Listen to this. The Super Bowl set an all-time record for viewership. See, here's what Clay did, okay? Clay put this in there because the argument on the ratings of the NBA going down has been this. People are viewing sports differently. There's more options. There's more streaming. Hold on a second. Clay put this in there. The Super Bowl set an all-time viewership high this year. NBA ratings peaked 25 years ago. He also put in there college basketball, the NCAA tournament, all-time ratings this year. Women's college basketball and TV ratings, all-time this year. People viewing things differently, people having different options, doesn't hold water when it comes to an entity like the NBA, the NFL, college basketball, college football ratings, top most ever, and women's college basketball. Hey, NHL, more of a niche sport, right? Major League Baseball has all these different networks. I'm just telling you, he is not wrong. And I don't know if it's killing the NBA. I'm not saying it's killing, okay? But it certainly isn't helping viewership. That they went woke and they're frauds, and we know they're frauds. Look, part of the history lesson that Clay talks about here is this guy on the left, LeBron James, literally faking racism on his house in LA. Remember, he scrolled all that stuff, put all that stuff out there. Remember all that? And next thing you know, couldn't find it. Police, security cameras. Where? What? Nobody. LeBron, did you go John Thompson? John Thompson famously did that at Georgetown way back in the 70s. His son, Ronnie, tried it at Ball State. Racial stuff. It fell flat. People knew. Don't bullshit us. Don't do it. LeBron, you tried. We ain't having it. Period. Not having it. And when you don't stand up to dictatorships and you got FU money, you are frauds. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to morph right now into baseball, and I'm going to tell you this. First of all, LA De La Cruz, great. Reds, fun. Fun every night. Cubs, I don't know what to tell you. You're sucking and you shouldn't be sucking. But there is light at the end of the tunnel for baseball. Two things have been great. One, the shift, out of there. Get it out of there. It's out of there. Now we got base hits. But two, the pitch clock. Thank you, gods in heaven, for the pitch clock. The pitch clock is changing the game. The pitch clock is sped up the game. Actually, what the pitch clock has done is it's made baseball go back to how baseball used to be played. You get the ball, you throw the damn ball, boom. I watched Bull Durham yesterday. I just happened to pick it up later on in the evening, and you catch the ball, you hit the ball, you throw the ball. Well, the pitch clock, according to everybody, players and managers, better defenses because you're playing faster. The pitch clock, first time ever, guys are starting to anticipate, based on the pitch clock, to steal a base. Stolen bases are up. I like it. I do. I've always said this. I'm skipping one. I've always said this. And we got a lot of people on the YouTube chat. We got a lot of people watching. I'm going to ask you this question. When I was growing up, first a statement, I loved going to Gary. I loved going to watch Gary Roosevelt play Gary Westside at Gary Westside. Because as a white dude, there was always a possibility of you getting stabbed. I swear to God there was. It was like, man. All right? One time we're going to Gary Roosevelt. They're playing Broad Ripple. We wanted to go watch. Bunch of little white dudes. One guy that was with us who hadn't been with us pulled out a gun from under the seat. It was about that big. And we're like, you idiot. What are you doing? Well, in case we need it, man. We don't need it. We don't need it. Everybody knows us. Don't worry about it. All right? I like going into situations that are a little bit dangerous. I've always said I want to go to a soccer match where I could get killed. I've always said I want to go where they're shooting stuff across at each other. The intensity is so high. I want to feel it. I want to feel that kind. I want to go to a Red Star Belgrade basketball game where they're shooting bottle rockets inside at the coach, throwing hot coins. I do. Except a soccer fan was charged with attempted murder after allegedly stabbing somebody during the Mexico-Qatar match. Qatar match, however the hell you say it. Now, I'm a fraud because I really don't want to be stabbed. But I just want to be there. I just want to be in the stands with the possibility of, I don't know, pew, pew. I do. And maybe I only last 5 minutes. I don't know. The stands that I hate are the stands of big stupid guy at a football game. I hate big stupid guy. Big stupid guy gives me a headache right here. Right in the head. Right here. Right there. Back to Ben & Jerry's. All right? Ben & Jerry's got sold, okay? Ben & Jerry's got sold, and it's owned now by a group in Russia. Here's what's going on. The company has lost billions, and we're going to show you why. Ben & Jerry's is and always will be woke. It's not new. Stop buying the product. They basically said this. Ben & Jerry's said on the 4th of July, the United States is on indigenous land. Taken. Give it back. Well, I would argue, okay, Ben & Jerry, you give it back. You give your plants back in Vermont. You give your plants back in Connecticut. You give your stores back. Give them all back. I'm in, baby. Once you start giving it back, I'll give mine back. The parent company lost $2 billion in value after the ice cream brand went woke. People have had enough of woke nonsense. I certainly have, and you certainly have. All right, before we go to Hammer Time, I got to get into my guy. I love Isaiah Thomas. You may not like Isaiah Thomas. I like Isaiah Thomas. I do. I'm a fan of Isaiah. I'm a big fan of Isaiah. Don't at me about it. Isaiah's a bad mother. He is. Isaiah's the best little guard to come around, I'll say, until Steph Curry. But even this, I would say to you, Isaiah Thomas is the man. Isaiah Thomas claps back. Isaiah Thomas is not having this nonsense. Isaiah Thomas is saying to Dennis Rodman, you know what, son? Don't bring me into your stupid. Seriously, don't bring me into your stupid. You want to bring me into your stupid about Larry Bird? Understand this. I was joking back in the day. And we all know that Isaiah, when he said Larry would just be an average player, we all know Isaiah was joking. Rodman is an idiot. If Larry Bird played in this era, said Dennis Rodman, I think he'd be in Europe. I'm just letting you know, man, he'd be somewhere over there. Isaiah said, my personal opinion on Larry Bird, if Larry Bird was playing today, he would still be the MVP of the league and his team would still be winning championships. Now, why do I say that? Because I just watched a Joker who is very similar to Larry Bird take his Nuggets team and win the championship. So if I look at these two players, and if I'm saying they're similar, then Bird would win 2 or 3 championships in this era. Now, people are writing that Isaiah, quote, famously backed Rodman when Rodman said in 1987 that Bird was overrated because he was white. He did not. Isaiah Thomas was totally joking. Totally. He's like, yeah, he would be. Completely, totally in 1987 joking. And I'm glad to see Isaiah, who is not afraid to share his opinion, by the way. It's not like he gives a rat's what Dennis Rodman has to say. I mean, who cares? But I will say this, Isaiah is never afraid. Isaiah is tougher and tough, great player, still looks like he's 24 years old, and away we go. It's just the way it is. Rodman, still a moron. Isaiah, still brilliant. Like, I got to ask you all, can I ask a simple question? And I'm looking on our YouTube chat and I'm saying to myself, why in the hell would anybody in any major city vote for a Democrat other than you want stuff? Why? Why would any human being living in the city of Indianapolis that cares about their city vote for the current mayor, Joe Hogsett? Why would anybody living in Chicago vote for a progressive, quote, progressive mayor, New York, anywhere? We literally have hellholes in our city. I'm going to talk to Jason Allen Hammer about that, but I'm also, because Hammer Time is also a sports guy, I got to get into some NFL. Colts roster was considered 30th. Yeah, I said it, 30th. 30th. Worst in the AFC. Anthony Richardson, 4th pick in the draft. His ceiling is high, his floor is low, blah, blah. I got to get into why would anybody vote for a Democrat in any major city again, and what's going to happen with the Colts. We'll be right back with our friend Jason Allen Hammer, who hosts the #1 afternoon news talk show in America, Hammer and Nigel on WIBC 93.1.
To date, we, and yes, I mean we, the American people, have sent a whopping $113 billion to protect and defend Ukraine. Yes, all the while leaving our own border like an open, oozing, and pussing sore of national insecurity. But in case you thought the endless flow of dollars to Ukraine, more accurately Zelensky, was drying up anytime soon, well, no. That tracksuit-wearing con artist still has a blank check and more money is on the way. Surprise! Christmas has come early for Zelensky now that the Pentagon identified a bookkeeping error that will free up even more money for Ukraine funding. Apparently, the Pentagon overestimated the value of the weapons it has sent to Ukraine by $6.2 billion over the past 2 years, resulting in a surplus that will be used for future security packages. Oh, goody! As if the $113 billion wasn't enough, now Ukraine will have more to work with in this never-ending war they cannot and will not win without endless and continual propping up by you and me, the American taxpayer. Now, don't get me wrong, I support the Ukrainian cause and the Ukrainian people. But let's take off the rose-colored and politically correct glasses here and be honest. This is unsustainable. And it's not just the war that's going to cost us, it's the aftermath that's going to cost us too. The World Bank, Ukrainian government, the European Commission, and the UN estimate reconstruction and recovery of Ukraine will cost about $411 billion after 1 year of war. Damn, I don't know about y'all, but that's a little rich for my blood. We've got homeless veterans on our street corners that are supposed to fend for themselves, but we've got the cash to defend Ukraine in perpetuity? At some point, enough is enough. These two nations should be coming to the bargaining table and working out a diplomatic solution, but that'll never happen so long as we keep funneling money into Zelensky's ego.
Ladies and gentlemen, the number one news talk show, Afternoon Drive, is Hammer and Nigel. It's on 93.1 WIBC right here in Indianapolis because these guys are fun, funny, smart, informed, and all over the place, meaning they can talk about social issues, they can talk about government, they can talk about whatever you would like to talk about, including sports. And we love having Jason Allen Hammer on with us. All right, you mentioned it. I want to talk about it. We can find Saddam Hussein in a hole in the middle of the Middle East, but we can't find out who's doing cocaine in the most secure building in the world, and yet it gets even better. One of these sports books is taking bets on whose coke it was. Who do you think the coke perpetrator was?
Legal across the country. Degenerates like myself would find ourselves going to these overseas sports book, making all types of ridiculous bets. Sometimes you got your money, sometimes you didn't. That's what happens when you work with the folks overseas. But they've got odds now on whose blow it was at the White House. Now, keep in mind, yesterday we found out that it wasn't just an area where tourists and tour groups go. We're talking about an area near the Situation Room. So this could be some high-level folks here. So if you're looking at the odds, of course, the favorite on the board is Hunter Biden, right? These are based on the odds we're seeing overseas. If this were a major golf event, Coach, Hunter is the Brooks Koepka right now. If this were the Kentucky Derby, Hunter is Secretariat right now. But I'm going to tell you something. I think there's good value on the big guy, on Joe Biden himself, hair-sniffing, kiss-stealing Joe Biden. Because if you think about it, how else do they prop this guy up to get him in front of a podium every day? He's there. When he's not jacked up on blow, what does he do? He falls. He can't walk up the stairs of Air Force One. He can't walk down the stairs of Air Force One. The dude speaks gibberish. It's not like he hasn't talked about cocaine before or had it around the family. One of his famous lines was telling some guy in a press junket, take a test where you're taking cocaine? Who says that? Somebody who takes cocaine. That's who. And if you think about it, it's around. It's around. Hunter Biden's got all the stuff that he needs. I'm telling you, you can't rule out the big guy. But my favorite name on the list of the overseas betting odds is Travis Kelce at plus 800, fresh off the Chiefs' visit to the White House. I think there's good value on Travis Kelce, but if I'm pushing all chips in here, if I'm going Jim Irsay, all chips in, I want the big guy. I think there's good money there.
I think the big guy, I said exactly what you said the other day. I'm like, look, you see him on a normal day and he's a train wreck, can't speak, can't walk, and all of a sudden he does a State of the Union and he's all of a sudden sitting up high, a little clear-eyed. I think the coca plant and Joltin' Joe, Sniffin' Joe, Pedo Joe, I think it's not out of the question, Hammer Time. I would also go to that press secretary. Look, if I had to get up there every day and speak to the press about the crap that goes on in the White House, I'd be going real quick just before I get in there. I also
Wouldn't you think she'd be better, though? Wouldn't you think she'd be better at her job, a little bit more energetic? If Karine Jean-Cocaine were up there instead of Karine Jean-Pierre, I'd expect a better performance if she was jacked up for that job. That counts as a performance-enhancing drug. But the real reality, Coach, the real reality, this is probably just some staffer. I talked to a buddy of mine yesterday that's been working in D.C. for a long time. D.C. runs on two things, Adderall and blow. Those are the two things that run Washington, D.C. And right now, it's easier to get cocaine than it is Adderall. There's an Adderall shortage. There's no shortage of cocaine coming across that U.S. border right now.
No, and I will say this. I don't really care. And even if it is the president's son, I mean, look, there's a long history of malfeasance. Hell, Gerald Ford's wife was so hammered all the time, they put a clinic up for her. I mean, Ronnie Reagan and everybody. I mean, you know what? I'm with you. And if I worked for that outfit, I've never done coke, but if I worked for that outfit and I had to go there every day, I'd be taking the coca plant too. I'd be doing it. What the hell? Hey, got to ask you a simple question. Simple question. If you, why, it's not an if you, why would anybody that has a pulse, that doesn't just want, $10 in free stuff once a month, why would anybody vote for a Democratic mayor in a major city? Why would anybody vote for this guy here in Indy or Eric Adams or anybody, Minneapolis, anywhere? Why would any thinking human being do this?
Uneducated voters. That's what it is.
Yeah.
We live in this bubble, right? We follow the numbers. We see the crime. We see the poverty. We see the homeless tweakers on the streets. We posted photos of homeless tweakers on our social media the other day. People came at us like we're the bad guys here. Like there was a weirdo whacked out of his mind, naked, banging on a window, pressing his genitals against the glass. We wanted to showcase some of the ridiculousness that happens in major cities like ours. So we put the picture out there, side by side next to another dude who's whacked out, ODing with his hands in his pants. And yet we're the bad guys. It's this mentality of being a professional victim. And that's what it is. It's the uneducated voter and it's do-gooders. People feel like they're doing good by voting for the candidate who promises the free things, who feels bad for those who are going to jail, who feels bad for those who are whacked out on drugs on the street. Listen, addiction sucks. It really does. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but it doesn't make you a horrible person for saying, you know what, there are options for these people. In Indianapolis, where I live, there are tons of shelters that are more than happy to take these folks in, rehab them, work with them, get them suits, get them showered and shaved, and try to take them to jobs. But they don't want that. But the uneducated voter doesn't look at it that way. They feel like somebody should just wave a magic wand and all this free money should come down and we should just help everybody do this and help everybody do that. Okay, that's great. How are you going to do that? And nobody ever has an answer. It's frustrating. I wish more people would be independent thinkers and think for themselves. Right now, you've got a situation where the majority, not all of it, but the majority of the national media is spoon-feeding communities propaganda from the Democrats. That's just how it is. On MSNBC yesterday, go back to the cocaine. This is what I'm talking about. MSNBC show, there was a primetime block of 90 minutes where not one mention of cocaine in the White House happened, but it was all about Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago documents. It was about Ron DeSantis being some sort of ist. It was all this nonsense. Well, okay, but you're only getting one side of the story. Folks who don't live in this political bubble like we all do, or at least pay attention. You don't have to be a politico, but if you pay attention, you understand what's really happening out on the streets with jobs, with crime, with drugs, with prosecution. But I think a lot of these folks, specifically in the inner cities and these areas where they don't have flame-throwing type of media outlets, they just go with the flow. They feel like, well, I'm going to go ahead and vote Democrat. I've always voted Democrat. My dad voted Democrat. That's the dumbest thing you can do. Be an independent thinker. I got 2 teenage kids, Coach. That's the one thing that I beat them over the head with, basically. Be an independent thinker. You don't have to think like I do, but have a reason for why you feel differently.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like, I sat with a couple members of my family, and they're like telling me how great Buttigieg is, and all right, I'm like, okay, well, why? And they really didn't have an answer, but hey, I get it. You know, he was nice. He's from the state of Indiana, so he's a great guy. In our city, in Indianapolis, people may or may not know this, but, we had an absent mayor in the summer of love when some idiots decided to burn down Indianapolis, a riot by which we have not recovered. And the Indy Star, our local newspaper, hasn't written one single article about it. And they've had opinion pieces on it. Not one single article questioning where in the hell was our allegedly incapacitated mayor during the riots. It's just ridiculous that not only are the people uninformed, but the media is so in pocket as we go down the tubes.
It's not just the Indy Star, too. Look at all the television stations that are around Indianapolis. Every TV station has an investigative reporter, somebody that's diving into dumpsters and doing FOIA requests and all these types of things. But not one of these investigators has asked, one, where was the mayor? And number two, who was calling the shots? Because that's more important. Who told the IMPD to stand down during the riots, during the Summer of Love? Because that's the story we got from the Fraternal Order of Police president. That's the story that I've gotten from multiple friends I know that work in law enforcement. They were told from someone, not the mayor, to stand down and let the peaceful protesters do their thing. Yeah. Well, that peaceful protest turned into $2 billion worth of damage nationwide. And here in Indy, bricks went through windows, stores were looted, fires were set, and all of the butt sniffers in the city who are so thirsty for access to this mayor are so in the tank for him, refuse to call him out on it.
Why, and I look at what's going on in New York. I mean, this guy's trying to change the way you eat. This guy's trying to take away gas stove. We had a guy on, give me pizza or give me death. That was classic. He's trying to get you not to eat meat because cows fart. I mean, and this guy is a complete dumbass that I would not follow around the block, but this idiot's the mayor.
And if you remember how he campaigned, Eric Adams campaigned as, I'm a former police officer, I'm going to be tough on crime. Yeah. How did that turn out? Like, we have to be able to see through the bullcrap here, right? So you're telling me that all of these environmental protesters and folks at Eric Adams' environmental office in New York City are going to say that coal-burning ovens in New York is why people are having a hard time breathing. It's not being shot in the chest. It's not being stabbed on the subway. Those are fine. But if you make a pizza on a coal-burning oven in New York, that's why people are having a hard time breathing. It's unserious people. It's unserious people. Again, bringing it back to my neck of the woods here. I can't speak for every other city, but I feel like our mayor is like a caricature of every other Democratic city's mayor, where the crime is out of control and their solution is to make gun-free zones. So Monument Circle, the biggest block in Indianapolis, where the most iconic pictures are taken, it's where our radio station is located, Monument Circle. They're going to turn portion of that into a gun-free zone. Because as we all know, bad guys pay attention to the law. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, Coach, but it's happening all over the country. Look at Seattle right now. As liberal as anybody, but they've got the Major League Baseball All-Star game coming. So they're taking the broom and they're sweeping all the homeless up and they're taking them to hotels and they're dropping them off. So they want that city to look beautiful when the Fox cameras are there. But when it leaves, I think we all know what Seattle looks like.
Yeah. The great Kevin O'Neill, when he was a head coach at Marquette, before Marquette cleaned up his campus, used to tell his assistants, okay, here's a stack of fives. We're going to be walking recruits around. Give a homeless the five, get them in the CVS, get them in the Walgreens, get them the hell off the streets, because I got a recruit coming around. Let's talk sports for just a second. Colts, according to ESPN NNN, have the worst roster in the AFC, third worst in the NFL, but we have hope. Down with dope, up with hope. We've got AR5 or whatever the hell this guy is. As a Colts fan and a football fan, should the Colts have hope?
I think you should have hope by the experts saying their roster's bad, because these are the same experts the last couple of years who have said, man, these guys could make a dark horse run for the Super Bowl. Oh, man, this Indianapolis Colts offensive line. It's the most dominant offensive line we've seen since the Hogs of the Washington Redskins era. The fact that they're saying that this team stinks right now maybe actually gives me hope a little bit. And the gambling degenerate in me, Coach, feels like if Gardner Minshew starts the season at quarterback, and I got a gut feeling he is. From what I've heard, it sounds like AR struggling a little bit in some of these workouts. The book on him, as predicted, an athletic freak. He's got a huge upside, but the accuracy isn't there. He's missing throws. So if it's Gardner Minshew, I'm telling you, take a look at the over. I think the over for the Colts win total is in play if Gardner Minshew is the starting quarterback. Now, the reason I say the over is in play because it's not very high. But if this is a situation where Richardson comes in after week 3, your bet's done. But, man, I'm not sure he's going to be ready to go anytime soon.
We shall see. I think it's 6.5. Did I see that right? Wasn't it 6 wins as the Colts over-under, I think is what I saw.
In the worst division in football. Keep that in mind. This isn't the AFC East they're playing in, right? You look at the quarterbacks, it's Trevor Lawrence, and it's a bunch of other also-rans. You've got rookies. You've got Ryan Tannehill. Nobody's scared of Ryan Tannehill, especially with that receiving core. It's a bad division. Gardner Minshew could get you a couple wins out of that. If you win 3 to 4 division games, if you kind of hold serve at home, maybe steal one on the road at Houston, all you got to do is win a couple more. Your toes are tapping. I feel like Minshew can get you the number you need.
I am on a cooler right now, so I'm not going to bet anything for the next few days because I was hot as a firecracker.
Tigers is the play today, Coach. You and I are going to bet on the Detroit Tigers today.
I'm going to do it right now. I just needed advice and help. Appreciate you, my friend. Keep killing it. You're the best. Tell Nigel.
Thank you, Coach.
I love that guy. That's Jason Allen Hammer. Check him out, WIBC.com. It's the Hammer and Nigel Show, rated the #1 midday news talk show in the country. Very good stuff by Hammer Time. And here's the deal. We are going to get into this. I am doing more research than I've ever done. And as we move towards camps, we're going to have all kind of stuff with the football. We just have to. Like, the football is too good. I love the football. See, the football over-under bets make my ass wonderful. It makes it just wonderful. Couple of things that, off of what Hammer said, I will never understand. And Charles Barkley said it, Democrats keep voting for Democrats, black people keep voting for Democrats, and black people continue to be poor. Like, I don't understand it. I will never understand looking and saying, wait a second. I live in really difficult times. I live in a really difficult, and nobody seems to give a rat's. Why would I continue down the same path? You know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. We all know that definition. Child, please. We know that definition like it's our job, and I would hope that somebody somewhere somehow decides, well, you know what, we're going to wake up. And that person has big influence because we cannot go down this path much longer. Did you know this? Did you know that the White House press secretary, KJP, I want you to listen to this. So you know that's my dream job. That's the job I've always wanted. That's my gig, ladies and gentlemen. I want to sit up there and I want to answer questions, whether vaguely or not. And in certain ways, KJP does her job better than anyone. Now follow what I'm saying here. Here's what she answers. She answers 2% of Biden scandal questions at press briefings. You know her deal. I'm not going to address that. That needs to be taken up with the White House counsel. I don't have information on that. Take that up with the White House, whatever. Here's why I say she's doing a good job. We all know that it used to be the press was waiting for one slip. She's doing exactly what she should. She's not slipping up. She's evading. She's being very undemocratic, very unconstitutional. I mean, we're supposed to have an open and free dialogue here, but she doesn't have to walk back to that Oval Office with the President of the United States blanked off and saying, why in the hell did you do that? She doesn't have to do that. Silence is beautiful. He who doth not open their mouth doth not make a fool of thyself. Dakich, 1988. True story. You don't open your mouth, you answer 2% of the questions, and guess what? You don't have a hassle. And I don't want anybody calling me in. When I was a freshman at Indiana, Randy Whitman said, don't say anything that Coach Knight can bring back on you because he will. Well, you know, we like playing really hard in big moments. And Knight would come in and go, well, you didn't think the first half was big moments? You didn't think that was big moments? No. You don't put yourself in that spot. And she doesn't put herself in that spot. You can dislike her, but she really doesn't work for you. She doesn't have to answer to you or me once she leaves that podium. She has to answer to all the crooks and criminals that work in the White House, including the president. That's who she has to answer to. She has to answer to those bandits. She don't have to answer to us once she walks away. So she's doing a great job. I hate to say it, but why would she answer anything? I mean, you know, why would she, you know, I don't know. That's all I'm saying. I mean, no, I don't know. This is an unbelievable story, and I want to get to this. Tom Brady and his wife, his ex-wife Gisele Bündchen, lost a staggering $48 million in FTX shares when the company went under. Now, people say, well, Tom Brady hates losing. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Look at that, $48 million when it went under. How about that? You know, the deal is simple. The deal is simple. Don't invest in stupid stuff. Now, I'm sure they can afford it. I'm sure they can. But the fact of the matter is this. These two lost a ton, and I don't feel bad for them. I don't. You can roll the next tweet. I don't feel bad even a little bit. You lose, you lose. You don't lose, you don't lose. I don't care. Tom Brady's situation with the ill-fated FTX, highest profile example of humiliating reckoning facing the actors, athletes, and other celebrities who rush to embrace the easy money and online hype of cryptocurrencies. Yeah, well, what are you going to do? $48 million. I'd be a little hot. I invest in it. Our guy might be pretty smart. I put in 15 grand a couple of years ago, and we're up. I don't know. I don't know how we are. Maybe we're all going to jail, but I did, and we're up. So I ain't even mad about it. Listen to this. Supermarket worker fired after filming men stealing $500 worth of laundry detergent. What is our world coming to? So somebody walks into your store, they're stealing. And this guy decides, you know what? or this gal decides I'm going to film these people. That's it. I'm going to film them. And I get fired for that. I get fired for filming criminals. By the way, Tommy Lauren's going to join us coming up here at the top of the hour in about 5 minutes. Fired for recording 3 dudes stealing $500. We are so upside down. We are so stupid that if we just, what are we supposed to do? Just sit back there and let people take stuff? I mean, people say, well, detergent isn't worth it. I'm telling you, at my wife's work, at Athleta, where my wife works, they tell you, man, African Americans stealing, don't even bother. Don't even bother. We don't want to be called racist. Do you think that's changing? Do you think? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that's changing. I really don't. I hope it is. But you are allowed to go into a store as an African American in our mall here, steal, and you're not allowed to say or do a word because you don't want to be racist. That's and that's what is told of them. That is what is said. That's kind of infuriating. It should be infuriating for African Americans. I mean, it'd be like, what? What? But that's what they do. And in fact, I would argue, I don't know this for fact, but yeah. Yeah. Crazy. We'll be right back. Tommy Lauren joins us. It just infuriates me. It just gets me in a brain where I'm like, what the hell? We'll be right back.
He just straight up says you do not get to pick and choose when you want to be a professional young fella. This is Garnett talking about Ja Morant. He's got to get the right people around him. Tony Allen is chiming in on this. I know that sounds cliche, but more so than anything, you need some cats around you that's going to let you know when you're wrong and when you're bogus. And Garnett added, you've got to do better. You've got to put yourself around better to do better. And I'm not certain that he knows the crew around him is affecting certain aspects of where he is right now, which is suspended for 25 games, the second suspension of his young NBA career. But, Chad, everyone has tried to reach out. When I say everyone, I'm using that, tongue in cheek, but it's a lot of the well-known veterans across the league have said they're here if he wants to chat. Some have said they've reached out but haven't heard back. Not even NBA veterans, but Pac-Man Jones has reached out but has not heard back from Ja Morant. And he's not obligated to return a phone call or to take advice from people that have also screwed up. But at some point, you've got to hear the advice that is echoing and the reverb from the NBA and everyone involved here. And I'm not sure he does. We'll find out. Because he's now released 2 different statements. The first one apparently written by ChatGPT. If you want to Google the apology, it could have been you insert company name here. You wouldn't really know if he was an NBA player or not based on the apology. The more recent one, while a bit lengthier, does specifically, follow the tune of whatever song that Adam Silver was trying to write in the suspension.
Tommy Lahren is fearless. That's an understatement. 7 o'clock, you can see her, hear her, and get smarter because of her on the OutKick network. And that's a fact, Jack. She had Ron DeSantis on the other day. And the reason Ron DeSantis came on her show is because Tommy's very smart. She's not biased. She's just smart. And so smart people like coming on smart people's show. There you go. Hey, DeSantis, how was he? What was your take as you and Ron discussed basically everything involving Trump, the race, what's going to happen, what has happened, Florida? You discussed everything with him. What was your take on him?
Well, I've been a fan of Governor DeSantis for a long time. All of us, I think, have, especially how he handled COVID. But I got to tell you, he is somebody, and I've talked to a lot of politicians over my days doing this, and he's somebody that you ask him something, he's got an answer right away because he knows his stuff. He knows his policy. And what I love about Ron DeSantis is this. He didn't really want to talk about Trump. You know, he wanted to talk about policy. He wanted to talk about what he's going to do for the country and parental rights. He didn't want to talk about the back and forth and this person and that person and the attack ad this, the attack ad that. So I give him a lot of credit for that because I think that by and large, this race has been about investigations and scandals, and it's been about Trump versus DeSantis. But where do the American people fall in all of that? I'm glad that the governor cares about the American people and he wants to keep us at the forefront. I respect that.
Yeah, I do too. And you don't win. You know, Trump is the ultimate get in the mud guy and hope you join him and roll around, right? I mean, you don't win going in the mud with Trump, I don't think.
I think that Ron is going to have to do it to some extent. I mean, he's going to have to punch back.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because one of the parts of my interview that's getting a lot of media attention, I mean, Vanity Fair just wrote about it this morning. The Washington Post wrote about it yesterday. People are all up in arms over it because if you'll recall, late last week, the DeSantis War Room Twitter account put out a video kind of slamming Trump for his pro-LGBTQ policies and his pro-LGBTQ statements he's made in the past. And the DeSantis War Room put out a video attacking that. Now, I saw it and I was like, okay, it's got Caitlyn Jenner in it. I don't really like that because Caitlyn Jenner is a friend of mine. Caitlyn Jenner fights for women's sports. So I knew I had to ask Governor DeSantis about it. And when I did, he pretty much doubled down and said, hey, listen, Trump has kind of been on the forefront of gender ideology. He's had transgender people in his pageants before. I mean, so he doubled down and he didn't back away from it. And now the liberals are going crazy because they're slamming Ron DeSantis for slamming Trump, but they're saying Trump is still homophobic, but Ron DeSantis is more homophobic. And they shouldn't have said that about Caitlyn Jenner, but they also hate Caitlyn Jenner. So it's a big mess, but it's quite interesting to watch it, honestly.
Tommy, can I ask you, do you think calling somebody, like you get called names, I get called names, I literally, like 10 years ago, it bothered me. By this point, I'm like, yeah, if I don't get called a name, I'm not doing it right. Do you think any of that stuff resonates still? And do you think it will by the time we get to election? You're a homophobe, you're anti-trans. Do you think people are just getting immune to that kind of thing?
See, I don't really care what people say about me, but I'm also not running for office. So I think that the challenge is going to be this. In order to win a general election, we do need to win over some independents and some Democrats. So I do think that it's going to be strategically necessary to make sure that some of the people who want to just believe that the GOP is full of homophobes and racists, I do believe it's important for us to make sure that it's clarified that that's not the case. But I also understand the premise of never spend your time explaining to people who are dedicated to misunderstanding you. So the far left, they're going to call us, they're going to call DeSantis Trump, they're going to call us all the names in the book, and it really doesn't matter. We could be saints, we could be Mother Teresa, we could be Jesus Christ, doesn't matter. They hate us. But there is going to be a place to try to convince some of those independents who are not the far woke and try to make sure they understand what we actually stand for. I think that's the happy medium we have to find.
I agree. We have a clip from your interview with Ron DeSantis. Let's play it, Nick. Dylan?
There has been a little bit of backlash because late last week, the DeSantis War Room Twitter account put out a video attacking Donald Trump for, I guess, his advocacy for the LGBTQ community. And some people on the Trump side, and then, of course, the liberals, some people in between, they were pretty upset at that video. It features Caitlyn Jenner and other folks. Now, what do you say? What was the intent of that video? And it was not put out by you, but it was put out by an account linked to you. What's your response to all the backlash?
I mean, I think, identifying Donald Trump as really being a pioneer in injecting gender ideology into the mainstream, where he was having men compete against women in his beauty pageants. I think that's totally fair game, because he's now campaigning saying the opposite, that he doesn't think that you should have men competing in women's things like athletics. And so we've been very clear on it, that we believe in protecting the rights of our girls and the rights of women athletes to be able to participate with fairness and with integrity. And ultimately, when you talk about some of the gender ideology that's being unleashed in this country, in the state of Florida, we are fighting back against that clearly in schools. But I think even beyond that, it's just a fundamental issue of, what role. I think it's an attack on women's rights more broadly to say that gender is fluid. And I also think it's an attack on the truth itself. When they take a swimmer who swam on the men's team for 3 years and then switches to the women's team, and they say that's the women's swim national champion, we know not only does that violate the opportunities for the other women swimmers, but we also know that that's a lie. It's not true. And I think there's value in making sure our society is rooted in truth and not in social fact.
This is all fact. Trump did do this, to your point earlier. I mean, but yet I'm getting that this would be misconstrued somehow. I mean, do you think, I want to go back to what you just said about DeSantis, and there's an example of him continuing to answer the question. If both ran on truth, if DeSantis ran on what he's done as the governor of Florida, and Trump ran for what he did as president, who would be the nominee in your opinion?
Oh, that's a tough one, because if all things were the same, I think people would say, I'd love to just have Trump in 24 and I'd love to have DeSantis in 28. But that's just not how things are. And you and I have talked about this, Dan. I am very concerned about Donald Trump winning a general election. I just am. I don't think he would be bad at governing. I know he'd be a fantastic president. I don't think at this point he can get elected. And that's just the truth. And I ask people that still believe that wholeheartedly, that Trump is our guy. I ask them, okay, he lost in 2020. Whether you want to believe that things were rigged, it really doesn't matter. Facts on the table, he lost. What has he done since then to convince people that he's the guy? And it can't just be Joe is awful, because Joe was awful in the 2022 midterms too. But guess what? Democrats still won a lot of races they shouldn't have won. So that's where we are. And I'm concerned. And I think Ron DeSantis has a better chance. I think he's young and vibrant. I think he's the future of our party. And sometimes, you got to know when to fold him. And I hate to say that about Donald Trump, but this might be the time to know you got to fold him.
You were censored by big tech. The Supreme Court in Missouri and our friend Eric Schmidt, they came out and said, look, no good, can't do it. Let me ask you on a personal level. What was it like to know that you were being censored by big tech / Biden? What was that like personally? What did that feel like?
Well, it's nice that I got to see my name in black and white writing on that email from the White House digital director. It was nice to see that this was happening, because I had known all through COVID that I was being censored. I had known that my followers were dropping off right, left, and center. I knew that my views and my tweets were going way down, and it didn't make sense because I would be trending on Twitter, but I wouldn't have any retweets. Or I would be on Facebook and people would say, oh, we tried to watch this. We couldn't find it. It was blocked. Or we had to search for it and we couldn't find it when we searched for it. So I knew it was happening. I think a lot of us did that were vocal, but to actually see it was gratifying. And now we know the Biden administration, they're trying to appeal that decision. They want to be able to collude with social media companies. Oh, imagine that. They want to collude to keep us quiet and keep the truth tamped down. So not surprising, but I just hope that this opinion holds water, and I hope it's so airtight that they can't get around it. It would be nice to finally have some truth and transparency in our election process.
Do you feel it now? Because I feel it now. Like I watch what's going on with my show on different days, and I watch, and my wife even's like, Dan, I don't ever see on Twitter your stuff. Elon Musk was supposed to be the great emancipator of all this kind of stuff. Do you feel like he has been? And what's your sense so far about being, I guess, uncensored now?
Well, I don't know what to extent we're actually uncensored. I think Twitter is a much better place. I think that there's, a lot more freedom and transparency. But I think there's still some work to do on Twitter. And I think there's still some controls in the back room there that might have kind of a shut-off valve on some of us. And then we know that when it comes to Facebook or Meta, whatever they want to call it, we know that there's been no work done over there to make anything any less oppressive for conservative speech. So I have no confidence in that. And I don't know if you saw it this week, Dan, but Meta put out a new kind of like anti-Twitter, this Threads, and I'm on it because I want to see what it's about. But now Meta is trying to compete with Twitter, but it's still censoring conservatives, just like Facebook and Instagram do. So who knows what's next? But social media, I fear, is not getting much more transparent or free, maybe with the exception of Twitter. But there's a whole lot of other people in the game. As we know, YouTube, Google, Instagram, Facebook, we got a lot of issues.
Do you think this Threads will move forward? I know that, Musk is suing or is going to sue, that kind of thing, Zuckerberg, and of course they're going to fight, or are they going to fight? The whole thing is just surreal to me, but do you think this Threads thing will hold water and impact?
I'm on it, and I know a lot of people downloaded it, and the thing about it is that they were really smart because what it allowed users to do was transfer basically their entire Instagram profile immediately over to Threads. So it makes it really easy, and you pretty much have like a built-in thing for people to follow you if they already follow you on Instagram. So where people might be, I guess, excited to go over there is because they don't have to build up from the bottom. They can take their Instagram family and they can move it straight on over. So that's going to be the thing that's going to be the challenge. So we'll see. I think if a lot of celebrities start using it, then I think that's where we're going to see maybe people moving more over to that side. And I worry about the censorship because, everybody moves over there and we still got our Facebook problem.
Hey, before I let you go, is Tim Scott going to be a player in this? Is he going to be a player in anything here for the Republicans?
I think he's going to mess some things up for Ron DeSantis, unfortunately. And I love Senator Scott, by the way. I think he's great for our party. I think he'd be a great vice presidential pick. And I'm going to tell you this. I want to give you my prediction right now, and I haven't said this out loud yet. But Dan, I believe Gavin Newsom's going to run on the Democrat side. So I don't know who he'd pick as his VP, but I think it's going to be Gavin Newsom. And then if Trump is the nominee, I'm going to tell you this right now. I think his VP pick is going to be Congressman Byron Donalds, because I've seen Congressman Donalds and Donald Trump very close lately. They've been doing a lot of things together. So I think that if it's Trump, Byron Donalds is going to be his VP pick, and Ron DeSantis, I'm not sure, but I would love to see a Senator Scott be the VP pick for Ron DeSantis. I don't know if that's possible, but that's the game board I want to set up.
Hey, I've noticed that thing about Byron Donald too. I like that guy. You're my go-to. Am I good to like Byron Donald? I think I like that guy.
Oh, he's the best, and that's why I wish he would run with Governor DeSantis, because I wholeheartedly believe in that man. I've had him on my show several times, and he's a Trump supporter. I'm a Trump supporter too, but I think that he's got a bigger career ahead of him, and I worry if he ties himself to Trump. I worry that that's going to be an issue for him, but, we'll see how it plays out. I think that he's going to do great things regardless. I'd love to see him over on the DeSantis side, but, either way, he's a great warrior for us.
Hey, last thing. Tommy Lauren is fearless. You can see her and watch her and listen to her Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. right here on the OutKick Network. But I got to ask you, betting lines are out on the whose blow was it. I say it's the big guy. I say, Joltin' Joe, Sniffin' Joe, Pedo Joe has to take a little hit to get through the day. Most people feel like it was Hunter. Some think a staffer. What's your best guess?
Well, if this is what we see, Joe on cocaine, he's got to get some stronger cocaine because it is not working. if it was his, indeed, I don't know. I think someone spoofed him because I have never seen somebody, I think they would rather give Joe Biden Geritol than giving him cocaine at this point. I think it was Hunter's. I really do. And you know what? I think that they won't admit it's Hunter's because he just got this plea deal. So if he's caught with drugs, that could put a wrench into that operation. So I wholeheartedly believe it's Hunter's, but I know some staffer is going to take credit for it, as we all know.
How do you get blow into the most secure building in the world? Seriously, how do you just?
How do you get Hunter Biden into the most secure building in the world? That's what I want to know. How was Hunter Biden allowed to go in there himself as a human?
Hey, last thing. I have said this. I don't know whether or not, you live in Nashville. I don't know whether you go out. I don't know whether you even drink. But I have said this. I do. I like going out. But I don't want to hang with Hunter Biden. I think I was always the guy that would stay out till 4 a.m. The bar would close and I'm like, where are we going next? That kind of thing. But I would not want to hang with Hunter Biden. He would be way too much for me to hang with on a Saturday night, I think. I do.
Yeah, he would always be way too much for me. He's not my type of person. He's not my type of hang. And I don't think he would fit in well here in Nashville either. I don't think Nashville is his scene. I think maybe New York, LA, the homeless encampments of LA. I think that's more his vibe.
I agree. And find a dentist, will you, Hunter? Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you supporting us, tweeting us. You're awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you can check her out. 7 o'clock, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Tommy Lauren is fearless, people. Yes, she is. She is. Speaking of fearless, we're going to set this back up before we get into our conversation with the boss. I don't know how many of you saw this, but our boss, we'll go back to the beginning, fellas. Our boss, Clay Travis, and the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban, got into a tete-a-tete on Twitter yesterday. He absolutely humiliated Chinese shill Mark Cuban. See what's going on here. Hey, and by the way, Clay is going to join us, coming up at the bottom of the hour. Mark Cuban, you've been hopping in my mentions. Why did the NFL set all-time viewership records this year, as did men's and women's NCAA basketball? But the NBA peaked 25 years ago in viewership. Look forward to hearing your analysis. This article that Clay wrote, in my opinion, is a history lesson for businesses. It's a history lesson for us. It is a must read. Look, I know what people that don't like me say. Well, Dakich, you just pandering to the boss. No, Clay has written a lot of things that I haven't even talked about on my show, but I read this cover to cover. I read this from start to finish, and it, ladies and gentlemen, was spectacular. It is spectacular. Well, guess what happened, ladies and gentlemen? Mark Cuban did chime in. Probably, Mark Cuban said, because the NFL is more popular than us, but our ratings were up as well. Okay, well, that goes against the data, but we'll get into that in a second. Let me ask you two questions. This is Mark Cuban asking Clay Travis. Why was the NBA more watched than any other TV show on TV, particularly in the young demos and most popular on social media? 2, what happens to your show when AM radio is taken out of all cars and trucks? See, I like it. I ain't mad about it. A shot fired back. This is two adults having a conversation right now. Let's hear from Clay, who, by the way, joins us at 10:30. False, number one. NFL, NBA ratings are at a 30-year low. The data, which Clay put in his article, does not lie. NBA ratings peaked 25 years ago. Meanwhile, NFL, college football, men's and women's basketball continue to set record highs. Answering the second question, what happens to your show when AM radio goes away? The answer is simple. Audio evolves. We get 15 million plus podcast downloads a month. It's a pretty solid answer. Guy asked a question, guy gave an answer. When people ask me a question and I give an answer, oh, it's crap, dog. Okay, well, there it is, two adults. It goes on, though. Continue, if you will. Then wait, there is more. Social media impressions are mostly blank. likely, in my opinion, detract from the popularity of actual NBA games. I think they're a substitute rather than a supplement. Otherwise, NBA ratings would be collapsing and you'd be crushing. Wouldn't be collapsing. You'd be crushing the NFL, which is far less popular on social media, instead of getting crushed. But while we're here, Mark Cuban, a question. Should Chinese people have basic human rights? I think they should. Do you? Why will the NBA speak so aggressively on, say, North Carolina bathroom bills and say nothing about China, all while pocketing their billions? Shouldn't basic human rights be a non-negotiable issue for a global brand like the NBA? Reasonable questions. Reasonable. But wait, there's more. So what you're saying is that the NBA is by far the most popular sport. We agree. I don't know how he got that, but good for him. All people deserve human rights, Clay, in all countries. Okay. So, in answering this, you disagree with the Chinese Communist Party, putting their people in concentration camp and denying their people basic human rights. We agree. Why not have NBA issue that statement? And if the NBA won't, why not have the Dallas Mavericks issue that statement? I'd be hugely supportive, which is important, apparently, to Mark Cuban. Clay Travis's support is important. So would most Americans of all political persuasions. I think we would all agree. I think if the NBA stood up, remember Daryl Morey did, and he got crushed and eventually fired, found a new job because they had to get him a new job or else they'd have been absolutely crushed. But wait, there's more. All right, hold on. I can't imagine being a billionaire and still being afraid to say what I actually think, Clay says, read the initial tweet, because I'm worried what communist dictators might think of me. What's the point of having blank you money if you're too much of a B to even say blank you to China? Now, this is where it all goes south for Cuban. He does what most do. What would you say to someone in your family who got called in an argument? Clay Travis, I would tell my kids, whatever the argument, you kick their backside. That's what people who just got their backside kicked. They start calling names. Well, I'd tell my kids to stop beating them and stand up to Chinese human rights abuses instead of worrying what evil dictators might do to their money. But I want my kids, Clay says, to stand on principle. You clearly put money above everything while pretending otherwise. Good luck, bud. See, that's the thing. Cuban does want to chime in. Cuban does want to have a say. Cuban should have a say. Mark Cuban is a smart guy. Mark Cuban actually was not the brains behind Mark Cuban's money. The brains behind Mark Cuban's money was a man named Mark Wagner. You can look this up. Mark Wagner was the brains behind Broadcast.com, which is how Cuban made his billions. Mark Wagner is from my hometown, Maryville, Indiana. He and Cuban were friends. They owned a bar in Maryville, they owned a bar in Bloomington. I think it was called Motley's, but don't hold me to that. That they walked out of a $10,000 debt that they owed. They walked out in the middle of the night. They drove to Dallas. They started Broadcast.com. Mark Wagner was the brains. Mark Cuban was the promoter. They got it done. Cuban made billions. Mark Wagner made more. You never hear about Mark Wagner. Mark Wagner stays in the background. Cuban's still the front man. You see Cuban. He wants to be out there. Good for him. And I think Mark Cuban is terrific. He's been involved in all kind of philanthropic operations, including the Cuban Center for Media, or whatever the hell it's called, at Indiana University. Okay, great. But Cuban wants to be a political activist. Cuban wants to tell us here at OutKick that we're only about gotcha. We're not about gotcha. We're not about any of that. We just simply are against woke. We will gotcha woke. We will tell the woke, you guys suck, get out of my face, goodbye, you're gone. That's what we will do. Well, long story short, that doesn't sit well, because we're becoming very popular, and we challenge the notion of the NBA, social media, social justice with a simple question. Why won't anybody if you are so mad about where men and women take a dump that you moved the All-Star game from Charlotte out of there a few years ago, you're so upset about this, why aren't you upset about taking all of this money? Your biggest investor, your biggest money maker is the communist country of China. That's all we're asking. Poppy, baby, we love you. Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, we love you. Yes, we know, Pop, that you like $1,500 meals. Yes, we know, Kerr, that your father was assassinated. It's a very sad story. But if you are truly going to be social justice warriors and you truly believe this country is bad and you truly have no problem about talking about different atrocities, why not China? Because money talks, BS walks. We, ladies and gentlemen, do not engage in BS. We just tell you how it was. Clay tweeted that from an iPhone, ironically. Hey, look, I'm not going to say we're not going to use Chinese products, but I don't see any of us taking a bunch of Chinese money. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, we're going to have the boss coming up here in a few minutes. A lot of you are upset because of the worker getting, I don't know, fired for filming video. You know what I love? Best Buy. We showed you back before. The Best Buy guys are like, you're stealing from us. They got in a stance and they tackled. I'm going to reiterate once again, if you don't mind, I'm going to reiterate once again. If I owned a retail shop, I would hire like 5 linebackers and they would just sit there. And if anybody stole, we would have a signal. They would have a little office. You know how you walk in to the initial doors at like Meijer and then you grab a cart in this area and then you go in the other doors like at Walmart, they greet you. I would put an office, 2 offices, little office right here, comfortable. I'd have a couple linebacker guys here, a couple over here. And their job is to simply get in a stance. Somebody's stealing, we close the door. Behind them and in front of them. And here come the linebackers. Yeah, if we think they have guns or anything, we call the cops. But it's linebacker justice. And we say, fellas, go get them. That's what Best Buy's guys do. We wouldn't fire people. Do you know how many guys? I have a cousin, Roy, played college football. My cousin Roy's been a DEA agent, been a local cop, state cop. I think he's been a cop for Sears and Roebuck. He's been a cop on cruise ships. He's been all over the place, done everything. Always getting in fights. He's about 60 now, but he would be perfect because he can whoop some backside and love it. That's what I would do. I wouldn't be sitting there saying, hey, you can't film guys steal it. No. No. I'd be like, fellas, yellow, or green, or banana, or porridge, or whatever, porridge. Here they come. On this side, this side. Come on, fellas. You stealing from us, huh, babies? We're not even going to call the cops. You just going to get your beat. All right, Clay Travis coming up here in a couple of minutes. I got to get into some of this stuff. The Twitter feud with Mark Cuban. You know, truthfully, I don't even know if that was a feud. That was like rival newspapers. I said it before. In my world, it used to be the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times. And you had a newspaper war. Newspaper wars were awesome back in the day because everybody had to be good. Everybody was working on a scoop. I always read Royko, but I always read the others as well. It was great. That's what you saw last night. A newspaper war. 2 conglomerates in real time. Cuban. Travis. Cuban. Travis. Finally. Travis with the knockout punch. We're going to talk to the boss man, Clay Travis, when we come back.
I had an incident very similar. So I go to Boston, and I don't remember how many starts in. I want to say this is May sometime. And Carlos Delgado's at the plate, and we're winning 4-0 or something. And I give up. He hits a pop-up down the left field line, and Manny jogs in from left. He's jogging, and the ball drops in fair and bounces out for a double. And there's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. So at the end of the inning, I come in and I set my glove down and I immediately turn left and I'm going to head to the end of the dugout and where he's at. And Jason Varitek stops me like with hand on my chest. He's like, "You can't." I'm like, "What do you mean I can't?" He's like, "Not here, not now." I'm like, "I'm dropping F-bombs." I'm like, and he's like, I know. We'll deal with it, but just don't do it now. And I was like, okay, trusting him. And it was the right thing to do. It wasn't. I ended up blowing the game, by the way. We had like a 7-4-1 lead. I blew the game in the 8th inning, but I let that bother me big time for the rest of the game. And I'd seen that happen. The times that Manny and I got into a little bit were all around that effort. I had a problem with anybody and effort, but that wouldn't have been the right time to do it, and I would have done it inappropriately had he let me go, which is ended up being a good thing. But that happens a lot. Not a lot. It happens often, I guess is how I should say, in the big leagues.
Last night, our fearless leader, Clay Travis, got in a discussion with Mark Cuban. Now, it ended with Mark Cuban, just getting his ass knocked out because there is no answer from anybody in the NBA when you bring up China. Clay joins us now. Clay, I thought that as I watched this, I equated it to modern era. When I was growing up, the Sun-Times in Chicago, the Tribune in Chicago, you had 2 newspapers, day to day, going at it for stories. I equated it to 2 major media conglomerates going at it in real time. That's kind of how I looked at it last night, and I thought it was a really good discussion that ended up with, Cuban having no answer, of course.
Yeah, Cuban got his feelings hurt because I called him a bitch.
Yes,
but I think that's a kind word for what he's doing. And for people who didn't pay attention to it, look, I or at least he claimed to get his feelings hurt. Let's be honest. There's no way any man is actually that offended by that in the context of the conversation. Look, the reality is Mark Cuban is worth billions and billions of dollars. And yet he doesn't have the willingness or freedom or, testicular fortitude to actually step up and say China's behavior as it pertains to billions of people around the world, but certainly the weaker population at a minimum, and to the billion, I think 1.7 billion or 1.4 billion, whatever the current population of China is, of its own citizens, they don't have basic human rights. And there was a great story, I'll give him credit, yesterday morning in the New York Times that I read, about a dissident blogger who had been pointing out the illicit wealth of China's Communist Party rulers. And the entire article focused on this guy being caught, dragged out of his apartment, put in prison for his political beliefs. That is something that I think universally a global league like the NBA should condemn. And at a minimum, an individual owner should condemn. And I think, sadly, what Mark Cuban is guilty of is he values the money that he already has more than he does his freedom of speech. And I'm going to be honest with you, there is nothing that I would give up in terms of money for freedom of speech. And I think ultimately this is the great hypocrisy that the NBA finds itself grounded in, where the league spent years arguing that America's the racist, awful place, while saying nothing to criticize and condemn the far worse countries that they take billions of dollars from. And I think it shows you how powerful China is, that even someone as wealthy as Mark Cuban, someone who should never, ever, for the rest of his life, ever have to worry in any respect about his family's security, safety, or ability to live the absolute apex lifestyle of the greatest country that's ever existed in the history of the free world. And yet he won't say what he really believes, because I think certainly he disagrees with the decisions that China is making, because he's too much of a coward, because he's afraid of what China might do to the NBA if he and other owners actually speak out and speak truth to power. And this is why I've always said that the ultimate sham of the entire LeBron James brand at its core and at its essence, and I would say the same thing about Adam Silver, and I would say the same thing about Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr, and all of these NBA woke activists, is they claim that they worry so much about being on the right and wrong side of history, yet they won't even speak out and condemn the country that is, at least on a global superpower level, the greatest violator of human rights in any of our lives. And if you truly care about being on the right or wrong side of history, you wouldn't be afraid of China. You would speak the truth to power, and you would fight for freedom against evil, for American capitalism and democracy and a free republic against communism. They aren't willing to do that, which is why, at essence, I find everything that those guys say to be, can I curse, complete and total bullshit.
Yeah, people wouldn't have a problem with not speaking out on China if the NBA wasn't so vocal about their social justice, if they weren't so vocal in trashing our country. People would be like, yeah, okay, I don't care. They're not speaking out on anything else. But once
Dan,
you enter that arena,
that's 100% right. That's right. And I'll give you an example. The WWE. The WWE is, and I grew up and my boys loved it, wrestling entertainment, old school WWF, now renamed WWE. They do events all over the world. They do events in Saudi Arabia. They do events in the Middle East. They go everywhere because they're trying to entertain people with their product. Nobody at the WWE, to my knowledge, has ever lectured me about politics. I don't have any problem at all. Right. Yes, to your point. If the NBA just said, we're a capitalistic organization, we want to be able to share our product with every country in the world, and so we're going to comply with every country's laws, even if they differ than our home country's laws, I would have no issue with that at all. I don't think anybody would have any issue at all. Heck, if individual teams and players wanted to speak out on their own and condemn that, I would have no problem with it at all. But we've got NBA players with Chinese shoe deals legitimately playing in shoes that were produced with slave labor cotton. I mean, they are modern day plantation masters. This is crazy. You can't say that America is an awful place because you disagree with an individual police decision, and meanwhile you're running around in slave labor produced cotton shoes in a game in the NBA. And so, yes, like the consistency. My position has always been, hey, from a capitalist perspective, if you're a business and you want to make as much money as possible, then you may have to do business in as many countries around the world as possible. And many of those may have values that you disagree with on a variety of different political perspectives. That's life. That's what life in a global world is like. But that's not the perspective the NBA has adopted. I mean, heck, they're going to the UAE to play exhibition games soon. You can be under UAE law. You can be decapitated if you're gay. Now, I don't know about you, but the threat of gay decapitation seems way more significant than what bathroom somebody uses in North Carolina. Maybe be a little bit consistent in terms of your position of where you can play basketball games.
One of the things I loved about your article, and I'm going to get into a couple things, but you made the point that we didn't know what David Stern, the commissioner who really helped explode Michael Jordan, we know, Magic and Bird back in 79 or 80, I'm sorry. But we did not know the politics of David Stern. We knew actually we did. David Stern's politics was money, green, grow it, earn it, get it. That's it.
Yeah, look, I think the LeBron Jameses of the world are standing on the shoulders of giants is one analogy. Another one is they were born on third base as it pertains to the league that they entered into in the NBA. If you go back in time to the 80s and the 90s, guys were trying to convince you that the NBA was worth watching. The Larry Birds, the Magic Johnsons, on through the Michael Jordans and Karl Malones and Patrick Ewings. They had grown up in a world where the NBA was not ascendant and where players didn't make tens of millions of dollars to play basketball. And if you remember, I think it's epitomized in an ad that existed when I was a kid that a lot of people I think will remember. Do you remember NBA Action? It's fantastic. And the idea was absolutely. The fan was a part of the star, right? They would fully all caps the fan and fantastic. And they would feature people who sat courtside, whether it was Jack Nicholson, whether it was, back in the day, a lot of, famous celebrities would go watch NBA games. And I think it's just a perfect contrast. Nowadays, when do fans become stories by and large in NBA games? When they get kicked out because the players are upset about something that they said. The players seem to genuinely hate the fans. And I think that's emblematic of the era in which we have entered. And ultimately, David Stern built something that Adam Silver and LeBron James destroyed, and that was the brand and essence and goodwill of the NBA. And let me give you an example of this that is in sports, Dan, but is outside of pro sports. I interviewed Mike Slive, former SEC commissioner back in the day, who was incredibly instrumental in building the SEC brand. And he said in his late age that he loved going to all these different SEC events because as he aged, he had come to see the Southeastern Conference as a public trust because so many people put so much of their heart and soul into how much they cared about whether their team won or lost and everything associated with that league, that his job was to preserve, protect, and leave it in a better place for the people that came after him. I think he did. He even teared up talking about it, what that job meant to him and what the obligation he felt because he was only going to be the steward of that league for a short period of time. He actually started crying talking about it. And he passed it on to Greg Sankey, who is the current commissioner that has done a phenomenal job, I think, building on the legacy that Mike Slive left and continuing to build that going forward. That's what a basketball league is. That's what any big brand is that is well known in the world. It is a public trust. There is a legacy that has been built by that brand. And whoever you are, if you are the CEO, your job is to be a steward for that brand and take it through sometimes rough seas, choppy waters. And when you leave, hand it off to the person who's next with that brand's overall integrity and strength and value at a minimum protected, and certainly the goal is to increase it and provide even more value going forward. That's what David Stern did. He created an incredible global brand. He handed it to Adam Silver, and Adam Silver and LeBron James and the people that he has listened to have completely destroyed that brand. And you can look at it just in terms of television ratings. People love basketball. It's a fabulous game. In my article, I talked about, Dan, the LSU Iowa women's basketball game, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, most watched women's basketball game of all time. I believe 9.9 million people watched that game. The opening rounds of the NCAA tournament this year, before all the underdogs won and went on to the Final Four, was the most watched ever. The Super Bowl, which just happened, aired on Fox, 115.1 million people. It's the most watched Super Bowl that has ever been seen, the most watched football game that has ever existed in the history of American sports. 25 years ago is when the NBA peaked, with Michael Jordan pushing off, I think, against Brian Russell, stepping back, dropping in that jumper, Game 6, 1998 NBA Finals in Utah, in Salt Lake City. That is the most watched NBA game ever. if you were an honest purveyor of media news, you would look at that and you'd say, man, that's interesting. Why is the NFL setting its all-time most watched football game ever, and the NBA peaked 25 years ago? What has occurred that even as people continue to love sports, and even, Dan, as people demonstrate that they love basketball by the numbers that women's college basketball and men's college basketball are producing this year alone, what has occurred that has led to the NBA peaking 25 years ago, and not only peaking, losing something like 70% of its audience for the biggest signature event of its season, the NBA Finals? Those numbers are pretty stark. They're pretty glaring. They are difficult to ignore, and yet no one other than me, you may disagree, but I don't think anybody other than me has written a piece actually looking at it and saying, okay, what's going on here?
No, God, no. No, that's why I thought it was so good. Last thing before I let you go, the history lesson that you give in this article, I mean, it was fascinating to me. I had forgotten Jacob Blake is this felon woman abuser called by a woman for beating the hell out of her. And the NBA, the WNBA, who, by the way, the WNBA opens mouth, stupid comes out every single week, it seems like. But anyway, these women actually wore shirts supporting this idiot, Jacob Blake, who was a woman abuser. That's how insane our history was just a couple years ago.
Yeah, look, the NBA players refused to play in an NBA playoff game because Jacob Blake was shot by police. I believe it was in Kenosha, Wisconsin, while armed with a knife after his former domestic abuser, the woman that he had been beating up, called police to demand protection because she was worried about what he might do to her. And the NBA players and the WNBA players refused to take the court because of what police did to protect protect her from him. And remember, Dan, the investigation revealed that the force was completely justified. This guy basically dropped, I think, to my knowledge, most of his lawsuits that he tried to file. And certainly there were no criminal charges brought against the police officers because they were doing their best to protect an innocent woman who had begged for their help. That's where we were, and that's where we are. Unfortunately, WNBA and NBA walking out to support her.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. That's how idiotic. Hey, Clay, can't thank you enough, man. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. Keep up the good work, my man.
You got it. That's our boss, the great Clay Travis. It was like, here's what it was. I don't know if you saw this, but I was in Vegas for this fight. I wasn't at the fight. Marvis Frazier against Mike Tyson. Look it up. That's what it was last night between the two, between Mark Cuban. It was like, all right, Cuban's going back and forth, and then all of a sudden, boom! Hey, this weekend here in the great state of Indiana, in Shelbyville, Indiana, I promote this. I'm sorry, I promote it because I want horse racing to just continue to take off. The Indiana Derby, ladies and gentlemen, is at the Horseshoe Casino. It's right down the road here in Shelbyville, Indiana. It's our Kentucky Derby, and I am heavily involved in promoting this. And I'm sorry, I will not stop because it is fun. It is a blast. It is a day. It is, and I'm going to be there at noon. I got a wedding to go to later on in the day, but I don't care. I am going to be there because Racing Rachel gets me a table. I'm going to have my peeps. We're going to bankrupt the place because we're going to hit every damn race right on the nose. Racing Rachel, the star of Horseshoe Indianapolis Racing and Casino. It's Derby Day tomorrow, baby. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm busy. I got to talk to you. I got to talk to somebody else. Now I'm worried about being bankrupt tomorrow. So it's going to be a really, really good time. We got some nice racing for sure.
Hey, let people know this is our Kentucky Derby here in the great state of Indiana.
Yeah, so the cool thing that I always tell people, and I'm glad you picked up on that, because everyone should definitely come out if you're a Hoosier and check out our very own Indiana Derby. It's just like the Kentucky Derby. We run it here. It's for 3-year-olds. Some of the best horses in the country are going to be here verifying who there's horses in the Indiana Derby who have ran in the Kentucky Derby. So it's a really big deal. There's some super talented horses that are coming in. There's going to be turf racing as well. Everybody loves the grass, right? And we have had that thing looking pristine for a while. We saved it earlier this week when there was some rain, and there are some huge races. So it's not just the Kentucky Derby or the Indiana Derby. There's the Indiana Oaks as well. So we have our own, just like the Kentucky Oaks, we have the Indiana Oaks. We've got some other really nice races underneath there, some handicaps and stakes races worth a lot of money. And you can bring the family too. That's another thing, Dan, that we like to tell everybody.
Yeah, this is not some small town deal. I mean, we're gonna put 25,000 people in there, correct?
Yeah, you were here. One of the biggest, I think the first year that you were here was like the biggest year we had ever had attendance wise. It was huge because there's like $1.1 million on the line. We've got a cigar rolling station, t-shirt tosses. There's a playground here for the kids. So if you've never been, it's free admission, free parking. I'm going to have a hat contest. It's super easy. You don't have to sign up. Just I'll listen for the announcement and I'll tell everyone to come in the winner's circle. $600 cash prize for that. We've got a jockey virtual reality station, courtesy of Breed Development. I got them to kind of hook us up with that. And it's going to be a lot of fun, man. It's going to be great racing. And let's just all cross our fingers for some good weather. I don't want to say the R word. I don't want any of that stuff on my big day. That's the only thing I'm worried about for tomorrow.
Look, here's the deal. You go to Shelbyville, and it's right there off I-74, and you go and you walk in, and it's just beautiful. I mean, this isn't like some podunk track in the middle of a state fair. I mean, it's beautiful. You got a casino right there. Last couple of years, they have people as the dealers. Indiana enacted that. You got the sports book there. You got everything you need. I'm going to be there. All right, I'm going to give some times. I'm going to be there at noon. For race 1, right? The post time, first one is noon?
That's where it starts, is noon o'clock. So be sure to be here early to get a seat if you're not going to. We have, I think, a couple tables left in the clubhouse. You could find the info on the website. But it's free. And if you get here early enough, we've got all kinds of chairs out there. You can bring your own chairs, too, if you want to. But, yeah, everyone that comes out to the track has never been there is always like, wow, this place is so nice. They're like, kind of shocked a little bit about how nice it is. And I'm like, what did you think? I worked at like the county fair? No offense to the county fair, but they're all like pleasantly surprised. And I'm thinking, what was in your mind before you came here? But it's going to be a busy weekend. And then we got the golf tournament. So I get one day Sunday to recover. And then I'm coming and I'm playing golf with you on Monday.
Yeah, we're going to do some shots, you and me. We're just going to get serious about this and just have a day. I got to ask you, because my friend Ryan Mueller, who is the best horse handicapper, at least in my world, and that I talk with or around every day, he says I'm going to read this right, bet the female jockeys at Horseshoe Indianapolis.
Yeah, he has picked, that's super, Ryan's paying attention because it's weird. They're here in Indiana, I don't know what it is, but we love our female trainers and our female jockeys, and everyone kind of supports them. We've got 2 young ones. You want me to tell you, listen, bet on Hannah Leahy. You're going to love this, Dan. Last night, I go to like a trainer kind of get together. She walks up and tells me, hey, I decided to have all my friends give me tattoo suggestions. I put them all on a hat and I pulled it out. She has Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy. She has a raccoon on the back of her arm. And I was like, is this good luck? And she said, yes, ever since I got it, I've been winning. So everybody bet on Rocket and Hannah Leahy. She's one of my favorite female jockeys. And we have McKenna Anderson. And we've got like 4 or 5 that are really, really talented. And they've been doing a good job here.
Yeah. Follow Racin' Rachel on Twitter, will you please? At Racin' Rachel. It's on TV, too. Where can people watch it?
Yeah, you know what? We're on FanDuel. Every day we're on FanDuel. You can watch it there. And then obviously if you go into any sports book, you can watch on the apps too. Like if you download TwinSpires, TVG app, all that, you can FanDuel, you can watch everything on your phone as well, which is it's just huge that's what's like this. This is what's going on. People love watching online. They love watching on apps, and we're available on all those. So be sure to follow along if you can't make it to the Indiana Derby Saturday and make a bet. Did Ryan give you his Derby pick yet, Dan?
No, I have not seen it. He just said bet the female jockeys. You can file, I think it's Ryan Cindy. It's Ryan Mueller on Twitter. You can follow him too. He's usually pretty good, but Racing Rachel, she picks every day, and I don't know. She seems to always win, at least when I go to it. So I don't know. I mean, but if my fat ass is going to be there, it's going to be there, and I can't wait. Lee, myself.
Lee's coming?
I haven't. Oh yeah.
I want to see her pick.
Lee,
she looks in the eye of the horse.
She likes we did great last year because she started a system. She put her glasses on, you know. She had the hot librarian vibe going, and she was staring at the horse, looking at him. Yeah.
She hit like for $200 with that.
Go ahead.
She hit for like, didn't she, one year she hit like a $200 bet with that. I mean, she scored big with her looking at the eye of the horse thing. So I want to know after Lee sees the horses what her pick is.
I'll put it on Twitter. I'm going to put it on Twitter. I'm a live tweet after we put it out there, but I don't want to change the odds. You know how influential you and I are.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I keep getting made fun of for being a chalk-eating weasel. And I'm like, it's not my fault. It wasn't the favorite until I handicapped the race, and then it went down to 3-1 or whatever.
You're the best. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Racing Rachel.
See you tomorrow, guys. Talk to you later, Dan.
Thank you. It is a great time. It is. I try to tell people, maybe I'll start a Friday segment of great times, great things to do, and you can send me suggestions. But I'm telling you, tomorrow, you'll walk in there and you'll be like, holy hell, this is beautiful. Like, this is unbelievable. And like I said, it's not a county fair. I mean, it is a spectacular, spectacular place. We had record days today, and I thank all of you. Come back Monday. If you're part of the group, we had over 400 or 500 all show long. Come on back Monday. Do us a favor. Tweet out the show after the show. Yesterday, the show got taken down for a minute because apparently they didn't like what Gilbert Arenas was saying at the YouTube offices. But hey, today's show, fantastic. And it was fantastic because you all showed up. Once again, Nick and Dylan and Ryan, can't thank you enough. Aaron, you're spectacular. Katie, of course, Haley. We'll have Haley back next week. I will be there. I swear to God. I will be there. I will be at the Indiana Derby. I will be there at noon. Come up, say hello. I don't know. I may pre-handicap it. I may have my buddy Vince. I'm going to text him after the show. And if he sends me information, I will send it to you. But follow my friend Ryan Mueller. He likes verifying in the Indiana Derby. I'm going to be there probably from about noon till 3 or 4. Then I got to go to a wedding. I haven't been to a wedding in a long time. I don't know how you all feel about weddings, but I don't like weddings. I don't like going, but Tegan's in the wedding. A friend of ours' daughter that grew up or went to high school with Tegan, played softball with Tegan. Lucy Garrett's getting married. Congratulations to Lucy and her family. But we're going to be there. I can't wait. Sean Black, I will see you Monday. My high school coach, 8 state champions. Dave Pishker is in. We're going to be broadcasting live from GCI, Golf Club of Indiana, where the 13th annual Tom Dakich Memorial Outing, sponsored by Horseshoe Indianapolis, presented by Gemco. Also, our sponsors are Aqua Systems. Booze everywhere, food everywhere. It's going to be a gala. Last thing, please, ladies and gentlemen, I'm putting it out on Twitter. We got some great online auction prizes. We got experiences with Benetti at the White Sox, golf with me and Urban, and 0 people have bid so far. You can go to dandakich.com and you can see the item. Seriously, 0 people have bid. I don't know. But But we're going to make some money, and I thank all of you for a great week. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody.